All right, we are now at noon, so let's go ahead and get started. Welcome to PHRC's Fair Housing and Power Hour session on the state of fair housing in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. So glad that you've joined us on a chilly January afternoon, spending your lunch hour with us. So today we are going to be talking about PHRC's updated report. It's our Fair Housing White Paper that's entitled The State of Fair Housing in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. So my name is Brittany Mellinger. I am the Director of Fair Housing and Commercial Property at PHRC, and I will be leading the discussion today. Before we get started, I do want to put a few logistical things out there. First off, I do want to let you know that this session is being recorded, and I did put a statement in the chat about the Wiretap Act. So it is against the law in Pennsylvania to record oral conversations without the permission of the folks involved in most circumstances. And this session is being recorded for training or record-keeping purposes. By participating in this session, you are consenting to the recording, retention, and use of this session. At any time, if you have a question or a comment, please feel free to place that in the chat, and we will respond to you as soon as possible. If you would like to ask your question or to comment verbally, please note that by doing so, you are consenting to the recording, retention, and use of your statements recorded as part of this session. And if you have any questions, please let us know. So I will send out the recording as well as the slides after this presentation, and we will be formally releasing this updated report next week. But this is really the sneak peek to let you to know the updates, what we'll be discussing and recommending as part of this report. I would like to thank our ASL interpreters and our captioner for helping us make this program accessible to you all. And I also want to thank our Director of Communications, Amanda Brothman, for providing technical assistance for this program. So we put a strong emphasis on fair housing at the Pennsylvania Human Relations Commission because we all have the right to fair housing in Pennsylvania. To let you know what we'll be covering in the next hour, we will provide an overview of the Pennsylvania Human Relations Commission. We will share the findings of PHRC's updated Fair Housing White Paper, The State of Fair Housing in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, and we will also seek to answer your fair housing questions. So as you have questions and comments, please feel free to put those in the chat. I will attempt to get to them as much as possible throughout the course of the presentation this afternoon, but I will also reserve time at the end, so that way we can make sure that your questions are answered. So to set a little context for today's session, we've been offering Fair Housing and Power Hour sessions at the PHRC for over 3 years now, focusing on practical information that enables our attendees to successfully navigate housing situations, whether you're a landlord that's trying to understand how to process an assistance animal request, a realtor who's working with an owner who might not want to sell their home to a same-sex couple, to a disability advocate who's trying to help an owner in an HOA community be able to put in a ramp or another modification so that they can access their home. Maybe you're a renter who's trying to secure housing and to navigate background checks, or a local government official who's trying to ensure access and opportunity through zoning and land use ordinances. We've covered a variety of topics through our consistent 1-hour program where we provide an overview of fair housing, discuss a specific topic, and how to file a complaint and access other resources. But in 2026, with this program, we're going to be broadening our discussions. So we're going to be focusing on the barriers that Pennsylvanians face in accessing fair housing and what we can do together to overcome those barriers. Back in 2023, PHRC put together a white paper to take stock of where we are as a Commonwealth with 4 recommendations for action. Last year, we decided to update it to make sure that it's keeping current with the changes that are happening with housing affordability, with protections and enforcement. So our session is intended to give you a sneak peek at the findings and the recommendations. And as I mentioned, we'll be releasing the full paper shortly. I want to give acknowledgement to the team who put this document together. So Adrienne Garcia, PHRC's Deputy Director of Regional Operations and Housing, Caroline Griffin, Director of Rural and Civic Engagement, Alana Berman, Director of Policy, Intergovernmental Affairs and Mediation, as well as Amanda Brothman, our Director of Communication. This This paper wouldn't have been possible with without all of your hard work, as well as the leadership of our executive director and our commissioners as well. And one last thing before we get started, I do have an engagement acknowledgement. So the information, materials, and/or technical assistance are intended solely as informal guidance and are neither a determination of your legal rights or responsibilities under the PHRA and/or applicable federal laws, nor binding on any agency with enforcement responsibility under those same laws. So for any of you that are unfamiliar with the Pennsylvania Human Relations Commission, we call ourselves PHRC for short. We are the state's leading civil rights enforcement agency. We've got a two-part mission, and we've been working to accomplish that since we were founded back in 1955. So we work to enforce Pennsylvania's non-discrimination laws, which include both the Pennsylvania Human Relations Act and the Pennsylvania Fair Educational Opportunities Act. So when folks believe that they've experienced discrimination, whether that's in their housing, in education, in the workplace, in public businesses and services, they can file a complaint with our agency and have an investigator look into the situation to see if there's a violation of our state laws. But we also work to promote equal opportunity for all in Pennsylvania. We've got a team that's dedicated to outreach, planning events and trainings such as this one. We've got advisory councils and social justice ambassadors who work to ensure that community members throughout Pennsylvania are fully aware of their rights and professionals are aware of their responsibilities under our state laws. The laws that we enforce are the Pennsylvania Human Relations Act, which covers education or employment, housing, commercial property, public accommodations, such as access to public services and businesses, and primary and secondary education up through high school. We also enforce the Pennsylvania Fair Educational Opportunities Act, which covers post-secondary education, such as colleges, trade schools, and technical schools. In terms of fair housing laws, since fair housing is our topic today, there are also federal laws that you should be aware of, such as the Fair Housing Act, Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act, which provides additional protections to residents in federally subsidized housing, and the Americans with Disabilities Act, which provides additional protections for individuals with disabilities. And there are also local ordinances as well that provide additional protections at the local level. So all of our fair housing laws work together to achieve two goals. So first off, ending housing discrimination, making sure that no one is kept out of housing opportunities through discriminatory practices and policies. But fair housing goes beyond that. It also works to promote diverse, inclusive communities. That's known as affirmatively furthering fair housing. So acknowledging that our state and our country has had a challenging past with housing. We've had laws and policies and practices, both in the governmental space as well as in private industries, that have kept communities out of housing opportunities and created unequal systems of housing opportunities. So there's work that we all need to do to make sure that Pennsylvanians can have equal access and opportunity to housing. So the Pennsylvania Human Relations Act establishes protected classes, and I'm going to cover the classes in housing. So that includes race, color, national origin, ancestry, age 40 and above, familial status, sex, religion, disability, including the use, handling, or training of support animals for disability. The federal protected classes are very similar, but ancestry, age 40 and above, and the use, handling of training and support animals for disability are not federally protected classes. So we've got some examples of housing discrimination on the screen. So it can be anything from discriminatory statements in an advertisement or a conversation, discriminatory inquiries about someone's protected class as someone seeking to rent an apartment or get a loan for a home, steering to a specific neighborhood, to a specific type of housing, a specific floor based on someone's protected class, refusing to sell, lease, or finance housing, conducting an unfair appraisal so that a homeowner doesn't have isn't able to take advantage of the full value of their home. Predatory lending practices with unfair services and terms. Discriminating in the housing terms and conditions, whether that's through a lease, whether that's limiting the areas of a housing complex someone can access, or the ways that services and facilities are provided. Sexual harassment or harassment based on any protected class is unlawful and discriminatory, as well as refusal to provide reasonable accommodations and modifications for individuals with disabilities. So these are just some examples. It's not exhaustive, but these are also not the only things that are keeping individuals out of housing opportunities. And we put such a strong focus on this because housing is everything, and it's connected to everything. So it's intrinsically connected to health and well-being for individuals and communities. When we're talking about housing, we're never talking just about housing. We're talking about opportunities to live in places where people can access the things that they need to live healthy lives, to have their children get stable, quality education, to live in housing that's safe from health hazards, so that folks can get to go to work, to jobs that can pay the bills. So these are all things that allow us to build the strong communities that we want in Pennsylvania. So before I get into the details of the report, I'd love to invite you all to join the conversation in the chat and to share what are some of the barriers that are keeping folks out of housing in your community or in your work? What are some of the things that are preventing people from accessing the housing that they need? And I'll pause a moment for folks to be able to get to their chat and to be able to share some thoughts. See, I see language barriers, absolutely. Unethical landlords. What are some other things that might be keeping folks out of housing? The home and apartment pricing. Yeah, affordability, cost, pricing structures. See, age discrimination. Accessible housing for individuals with disabilities and accommodation needs. Landlords who are refusing to work with housing choice vouchers. Yeah, denial based on source of income. Inflated pricing. Source of income, transportation, credit, and cost and income. Thank you all for sharing those issues that we are seeing all throughout the Commonwealth. All right, so let's talk access and opportunity. The PHRC is dedicated to ensuring fair housing choice for all Pennsylvanians. And we know that this isn't possible for folks to actually have fair housing choice unless there's actual choice, the existence of realistic housing opportunities. Protected choice, that's defined as housing that can be accessed without discrimination. And also enabled choice, and that's realistic access to sufficient information regarding options so that any choice is informed. And I want to highlight there were a couple additional comments in the chat about racial discrimination and the lack of steady employment, which can be additional barriers to housing. So thank you for those contributions as well. Starting with actual choice. So we know that there is a lack of housing options, particularly for Pennsylvanians with low income. So there are not sufficient amounts of affordable housing. Individuals have cost burdening. They're spending the majority of their income on their rent, which is preventing them from being able to take care of their other needs and have that stability. The assistance programs that are out there are inaccessible and insufficient to meet the needs of Pennsylvanians. Pennsylvania has really old housing stock, which means that some of the housing is poor quality and there are health hazards there, as well as insufficient tenant protections. And we see that this has a disparate impact on individuals in protected classes. When we look at those individuals who are predominantly facing these issues, we see that there are patterns along the lines of age, disability, families with children, communities of color, et cetera. So I want to highlight some statistics, and these are provided from the National Low Income Housing Coalition. We know that there are a significant portion of Pennsylvanians that have extremely low income, so 26% of the population, and there are simply not enough houses that are affordable to individuals who have this income level. So 253,422, that's estimated to be the shortage of rental housing that's affordable and available to these individuals in the rental market. For a household of four, extremely low income, that's $31,090, which is significantly less than the figure of $57,886. That's the annual household income that would be needed to afford a two-bedroom rental home at HUD's fair market rent. 71% of extremely low-income rental households have a severe cost burden. So they're paying more than 50% of their income towards their rent. You can see the bar graph below. Folks that have extremely low income, there's only 40 homes available for every 100 households. So there's significant competition for these houses. When we're looking at folks that are at 50% of the area median income, that figure climbs to 65 out of 100, but there's still that significant gap. When we're looking at folks who are at 80% of the area median income or at the area median income, there are more homes available, but looking at the folks that have less income, it's extremely challenging for them to be able to find housing that meets their needs at their income. And when we're looking at who's impacted by this, we can see that it's a variety of types of households. So some folks are in the labor force, but they are working part-time jobs or working at a minimum income job. It's individuals with disabilities. 22% of extremely low income renter households have disabilities. Many of them are senior citizens, 36%. Some are in school. 4% of those households, 2% are single caregivers, and then 8% fall into other categories as well. And this is an issue that is not solely in the rental space, but it also can impact a lot of prospective home buyers not being able to purchase a home because of their income and the lack of housing supply. The issue is that a lot of renters, rental households, that income just hasn't kept up with the rent. You can see that the bar graph or the chart here running from 2001 to 2023, where you can see that the median renter household income increased by 7%, but the median rent increased by 22%. So putting that housing affordability further and further out of reach, and that is sourced from the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities. So let's look at our rental assistance programs, the programs that are designed to kind of bridge that gap when individuals can't afford to secure a rental on the private market. There's almost 400,000 Pennsylvanians that do use federal rental assistance to afford housing. Many of these are seniors, children, or people with disabilities. There's a statistic here that 4 in 10 low-income people in Pennsylvania are experiencing homelessness or pay over half of their income for rent, that cost burdening, and many don't receive federal rental assistance due to limited funding. I want to talk specifically about the Housing Choice Voucher Program. It was formerly known as the Section 8 program, and it allows tenants to be able to rent from private landlords using a voucher. So this is the largest source of rental assistance. But many households who qualify for it are unable to get rental housing through this program. 3 out of 4 households that would be eligible for Housing Choice Vouchers don't actually receive it. And there's a lot of reasons for that. So insufficient funding for the program, long waiting lists, difficulty in securing rental housing once the voucher has been approved. And I also want to note that Pennsylvania doesn't have any statewide source of income protections, which was something that was highlighted in the chat as folks were highlighting barriers to housing. So a source of income protection prevents landlords from denying housing based on where a household receives their income, which certainly applies to federal rental assistance programs like this one, but can also include alimony, child support, earned income, and things like that. So we're seeing these issues in terms of affordability, in terms of the rental assistance programs, but we're also seeing issues around a housing condition. So is the housing safe and healthy for folks to live in? And the reality is that Pennsylvania has some of the oldest housing stock in the nation. So our average age of housing structures, the median year that it was built was 1963. And so this was before lead-based paint was outlawed, and there's a number of housing condition issues that result from this. So we've got lead-based paint, we've got radon, pests, mold, plumbing, and heating issues. PHRC runs a fair housing line where folks can call in to ask questions about fair housing and housing discrimination. And many times the calls that we receive are specifically regarding challenges in getting these types of issues addressed. You can see a graphic here that was from the Pennsylvania Housing Finance Agency's Comprehensive Housing Report in 2023, highlighting the age of housing. So you can see that at the bottom of the graph, the red and the pinks, those indicate housing that was built after lead paint was outlawed, but some of the lighter colors and that purple is older housing. So you can see the wide range of housing ages that we have. Through the American Housing Survey, there's data collected about some of these issues. So out of over 5 million housing units, there are over 200,000 that are moderately inadequate, 90,000 that had toilets that weren't working in the last 3 months, almost 400,000 that were uncomfortably cold for the last 24 hours or more, over 150,000 that had water supply stoppages over the last 3 months, and over 100,000 housing units that had mold over the past year. These are all issues that can significantly impact the health and safety of households. And the reality is that while some communities in Pennsylvania have rental inspections and code enforcement that provides greater accountability for landlords to make sure that their rental housing is meeting those codes, a lot of areas throughout the state don't have that. Particularly when we look at our rural areas throughout the state, 89% of rural municipalities have no property maintenance codes. I see some comments in the chat, unrealistic inspection requirements, and that certainly, I believe that might have been in respect to the discussion around housing choice vouchers, and I know there's been a lot of discussion on how to make sure that those inspections are able to not be overly burdensome to landlords, but still provide quality housing to tenants. And I also see a comment that redlining and aging infrastructure have taken huge tolls in Philadelphia, and I think that's a really important comment. Redlining practices which restricted investment in communities of color, and the burdens of infrastructure are certainly significant as well. The report also addresses tenant screenings and some of the barriers that are faced there for tenants. So many tenant screenings include questions around eviction history, around credit history, and justice system involvement. And this can lead to significant challenges in getting approved. And we know that these screening criteria, if they're used as a sole source of denial, have the risk of disparate impact for individuals in protected classes. Additionally, there has been a lot of increase in the use of algorithmic screening companies, which can lead to further issues around data accuracy algorithmic bias, and screening fairness. So that's something that needs to be considered as well. So let's talk about protected choice. So as the Fair Housing Enforcement Agency in Pennsylvania, PHRC accepts complaints of housing discrimination. You can call our office or go on our website to learn more information about this process. We will also have a slide with that information at the end of the presentation. Individuals who believe that they've experienced housing discrimination can also file a complaint at HUD, at a local Human Relations Commission, or get started through contacting a local nonprofit, such as the Fair Housing Initiatives program. And we know that hundreds of Pennsylvanians file complaints of housing discrimination each year. But we know that housing discrimination is also underreported. Individuals fail to file complaints for a number of reasons. Perhaps they don't know their rights. Perhaps they're concerned about retaliation from a housing provider. They don't want to be evicted from their housing or lose their housing. Maybe they're concerned about the length of the administrative process, desire to move on with their life instead of taking the time to file that complaint and to navigate that process. Maybe there's a lack of technology, concerns regarding language access and cultural competency. There's a lot of reasons why folks may not file a complaint, but we know that this housing discrimination still exists. This graph here is from our most recent annual report that covered fiscal year 23 and 24. And our new report is going to be released in March that will have updated figures, but you can see that there were 156 housing complaints that were filed at PHRC. And the top complaint bases for housing, they were disability, retaliation, and race, which is pretty consistent year over year. We do see those as being the top reasons why folks would file a complaint. There's also data nationwide that we can and region-wide that we can compare to. So the National Fair Housing Alliance has an annual report, and they reported that out in the Mid-Atlantic region, Region 3, there were over 2,200 complaints that were reported both to agencies like PHRC, to HUD, and through private fair housing enforcement agencies. According to NAFA, 84% of these cases were rentals, 3% were harassment, 2% were sales, and 10% were in other sectors. So there's still continued challenges regarding making sure that the choice is protected. And then the last issue that we wanted to highlight is enabled choice. So how are people accessing information about their housing, whether it's the housing that's available, the housing assistance that's available, how to navigate processes when issues pop up in housing, whether it's conflict with landlords, whether it's property conditions, whether it's other things. We know that individuals in protected classes may face additional barriers to accessing housing resources. So for older adults, it might be technological barriers. Individuals with disabilities, maybe there's a lack of information regarding accommodations and modifications. Individuals from other countries may face language barriers. There's lots of barriers that can be faced. PHRC works with many housing partners and advocates to ensure that community members get information they need to address these issues. So state and local governmental agencies, collaboratives across the state, nonprofits, and more to advance this work. But with the uncertainty of federal funding streams and budget challenges at every level of government, we know that there's significant unmet need. PHRC has launched a number of programs in the past few years to step into some of these gaps, both in housing and beyond, through our social justice ambassadors, civil rights outreach coordinators, and rural and civic engagement division as well. So how do we address these issues? We're not going to just stop by talking about these issues. We want to take action to address them, to make sure that Pennsylvanians can assert their fair housing rights and have this equal access and opportunity. So how do we do that? We make 6 recommendations as part of the white paper. As our team was discussing what steps we wanted to take, there were certainly many other considerations and issues that we discussed, but these were our top 6 that we want to focus on in the next year or so. So source of income protection, defining discrimination, to be specific that it includes disparate treatment, disparate impact, and perpetuation of segregation. Monitoring for issues impacting fair housing choice, implementing effective statewide code enforcement, advancing funding and increasing funding for affordable and middle market housing, as well as advancing housing opportunities through eviction ceiling. All right, and I'm loving seeing all the feedback in the chat, about 250 fair housing complaints in 2025. There's a question about not seeing more low-income housing being built. There's a lot of factors that go into that. Some of it has to do with the local zoning processes. A lot of the approvals happen at the local level. So there can be a lot of barriers there. There can be pushback from local residents. There can be restrictions that are placed on where housing is built. So it's important to know your local zoning, to be actively involved in advocating for housing that's going to meet the needs of your community. There's also considerations on state and federal funding as well that can impact what housing is being built. Landlord education should be part of the steps in this effort. Absolutely, that's a great recommendation, and that's something that PHRC puts a strong emphasis on. And I see a request for a copy of the presentation, and that's going to be sent out with the materials from this session, and we will also be releasing the full paper next month as well. So let's start with recommendation number 1, source of income protections. And we have a number of action steps here. So we'll be starting with gathering additional data about source of income protections in other states and data about the need in our state. And then we'll use that to begin a process to develop source of income guidance. We'll be engaging with our lawmakers to build legislative support for statewide source of income protections. There's currently a bill that's being considered and proposed on this as well. We'll be working to finalize the language to be able to develop the source of income guidance, and we will begin the process to develop the regulations on source of income protections as well. For recommendation number 2, defining discrimination under the Pennsylvania Human Relations Act, we'll begin a process to develop guidance to clarify definition of discrimination under the Pennsylvania Human Relations Act. We'll finalize that language for that guidance, develop partnerships to enhance capacity for data analysis for disparate impact cases, which are included under that definition, and we'll begin the process to develop regulations on disparate impact as well. I see there's a question around an example of source of income protection. There are a number of states that do have source of income protection. There's also localities throughout Pennsylvania that have source of income protection. So in Philadelphia, in State College, in Erie, as well as I believe recently in Lehigh County, they implemented source of income protections as well. So you can check out the language in those localities to get an example of those protections. Moving on to our recommendation number 3, it's monitoring of issues impacting housing choice. So we've got a bunch of action steps under this recommendation, working with our advisory councils, the AFFH task force that we co-lead with the Fair Housing Law Center, as well as other partners to identify issues that impact housing access and opportunity throughout Pennsylvania. As we become aware of these issues, addressing them through our Fair Housing Social Justice Committee meetings and other spaces throughout our agency. Making recommendations for agency-initiated complaints under the Pennsylvania Human Relations Act. Engaging with our federal partners, including the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, to encourage active engagement around these issues. Convening state and national fair housing experts to advance policy and programmatic proposals to meet the AFFH needs in Pennsylvania, as well as work to build support for a Pennsylvania AFFH rule. Since we haven't had a state rule, we've been dependent on the federal enforcement of that. Recommendation number 4, The statewide code enforcement, as we talked about earlier in the presentation. So we would work with our legislative partners to build support to address statewide code enforcement protections through the Pennsylvania Landlord-Tenant Act. Recommendation number 5 is also in the legislative space. So increased funding for housing affordability, working with our legislative partners to increase funding for state housing programs, whether that's funding to build new housing to meet the needs of Pennsylvanians, to address home repair needs, which can impact livability and stability for a lot of low-income households throughout Pennsylvania as well. And then our last recommendation, sealing eviction records. This is also one in the legislative space as well, working with our legislative partners to support eviction sealing, making sure that housing mistakes and issues that happened significantly in the past for a lot of rental households aren't impacting their future housing stability as well. And there's currently a bill that's being considered on this issue as well that we're working with partners to address. I want to make sure that folks are leaving the session with an understanding of our general housing initiatives and resources as well that are available to you. So we do offer trainings, free virtual and in-person trainings on a wide variety of fair housing issues. You can find our list of trainings on our website. We, of course, have this Fair Housing and Power Hour series, and we'll be releasing our new topics and speakers shortly. So you can keep an eye out for that on our social media as well as our other platforms. We've got our advisory councils and our ambassadors. If you're interested in those programs, you can definitely reach out to me or my colleagues, and we'll make sure that you can get connected to that program as well. We have a lot of written resources. So we've got fact sheets and brochures that are available on our website that you can download, or you can request printed copies and we can send them out to you as well. We work through a variety of state partnerships to advance these issues. We have a program that's aired on PCN TV. It's called PHRC Speaks, Fair Housing Forward. It's an interview series that addresses a lot of the issues that we've covered today, and you can find a full archive of that on our YouTube channel as well. We have an annual conference. It's called our Housing Equality Conference, and we are looking forward to hosting it in Philadelphia this year on April 23rd. And we also have a quarterly newsletter as well. If you're interested in getting updates from PHRC, please let me know. I want to highlight a couple of upcoming events. So we've got our Northern Pennsylvania Fair Housing Roundtable that we'll be hosting with the Fair Housing Law Center. That's going to be on February 5th from 10 to 11:30 a.m. on Zoom. So if you live or work in Warren, McKean, Potter, Venango, Forest, Elger, Cameron counties, we would love to have you participate in this and to share about what you're seeing in your communities. And I will put the registration link in the chat for anyone who would want to register to join us for that. And as I mentioned, we've got our conference in Philadelphia. I got to save the date here, and we'll be opening registration next month. And we would really love for anyone in the Philly area to come join us on the 23rd. We're going to have some fantastic speakers, panel discussions around the topic of liberty, justice, and housing for all, advancing fair housing, Pennsylvania's 250th year. For anyone that believes that they have experienced housing discrimination, I want to make sure that you've got the information to be able to file a complaint. So you can call our main number, which is on the screen there. You can reach out to any of our regional offices. You can send us an email, or you can go on our website and fill out a complaint form. There's lots of ways to get in touch with us, but we want you to reach out if you have questions, if you have concerns, if you believe you may have experienced housing discrimination, and we've got a great team that's available to assist you. And excuse me, and lastly, I want to leave you with my contact information. You can always send me an email. You can go on our website, and we have a QR code on the screen here. So if you have, if you want to provide any feedback about this session, you want to get connected with PHRC's efforts going forward, you can take out your camera and pull up your camera app, and that'll take you right to the survey. It will also take you to a certificate if you would like to download a certificate of attendance for today's program as well. And that is the end of the presentation. I do see that there's a comment in the chat. Why is there no financing available for repossessed FHA housing? That is a great question. I can certainly look into that and get back to you on that question. But thank you so much for raising that. Are there other questions that folks have? Any comments about the findings and recommendations of the report? Things that you would have liked to see in there? Things that you think are important to focus on? Would love to get your feedback about this. And I do want to offer a reminder that we will be releasing the full text of the report in February. So please keep an eye out for that coming soon. All right, I am not seeing any additional questions or comments in the chat. So I'm going to go ahead and close us out a little bit early and give you a little bit of time back in your afternoon. So thank you so much for joining us for today's Fair Housing Empower Hour series. I will follow up with by sending out the recording and the slides. And we'll be in touch once the report is officially released. I hope everyone has a great rest of your afternoon. Take care.